Back on the Rob Dibble Show with Ben Darnell on your afternoon drive. Joining us on the set is one of the best broadcasters out there right now, John Fanta.
Yeah.
So John is here. I know Tim Brando's not feeling well. Did they call you up and say, hey, by the way, Brando's not there, John. You got to go fill in for Brando.
I probably made 5 figures off of getting the call that Tim Brando can't make it up from the Chateau in Louisiana.
That's awesome.
And for that, Tim Brando, I say thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Great to be with you guys.
All right, we've got a bone to pick with you, Mr. Fanta.
Who doesn't?
Mr. Picking Kansas #1 overall. Big East poll doesn't have UConn at the top. Explain yourself.
Whoa, well, I think they're the best team in the Big East, far and away. I think they're clearly the favorite in the Big East Conference because of the roster construction between the veterans and who they brought in. In terms of the country, for me, I just look at what Kansas did in the portal, and I look at Hunter Dickinson being back, and I look at DeJuan Harris being back, KJ Adams being back, and they crushed it in the transfer portal. That roster-wise, there's more certainty to Kansas than there is to UConn. But the best coach in the country belongs in stores, and his name is Dan Hurley.
Like that.
And I do think that if certain things happen for this UConn team, they can be there. Again, look, they've mastered the formula. They understand what it takes to dominate and to win. I think, though, we cannot – if you put them #1, I think it's a tad disrespectful to just how unbelievably good Tristan Newton was the last 18 months of his UConn career. You know, he wasn't great when he first came to UConn. Then when he got into January of his second-to-last season of college basketball, he really turned it on, and this past season he was flawless. He was fantastic. When they came off that slump in 22-23, it was because he got going. Well, now you lose him. And Aiden Mahaney has high expectations to live up to, and St. Mary's is in Connecticut. Every night's going to be a battle. The Big East is certainly a different monster from the West Coast Conference. Do I think Aiden can handle it? Absolutely. But I think between Mahaney, I think another big question for this team is what kind of a leap will the sophomores take? Jalen Stewart, Solomon Ball, Ross, those guys have to be able to take some sort of a leap for this team. And then what kind of a role will Liam McNeely play right off the bat? Plus, the front court. You know, Adama Sanogo and Donovan Clingan provided so much known, and Samson Johnson was a revelation this past year. Will Terrace Reed be a revelation? Will Samson Johnson be able to take the torch and be the lead man? That's why they're not the #1 team in the country, but they're #2 or 3 in my book. They're a top 3 team because they've earned that level of respect.
Going back to last year when Cam Spencer got here before the season, we actually saw him here at this tournament. Your thoughts on just his, maturation from Rutgers to UConn and now in the NBA, what he could possibly do there. How do players make that jump? And is it a confidence-building coach? Is it the right system? How did he do so much? Because he just seemed like a totally different player than his first couple of years at Rutgers.
It's a wire-to-compete gene that was the perfect match in Connecticut and made us all feel like Cam had been a UConn Husky for 4 or 5 seasons, not just one season. Because I don't know if there's a player. If Dan Hurley were to go in a laboratory and invent a player, he would invent Cam Spencer. That's who he would make. This guy he's so competitive that he got mad at first night when he lost a 3-point contest. I mean,
he was mad here last year when he didn't make like a 5-foot putt.
You know, that's Last Dance
Yep.
type of anger. He's a throwback. And that's why he's going to succeed at the next level. Look, it took Dan Hurley's offensive system. Let's face it, Rutgers, I think Steve Pikiell's done a terrific job there. Steve Pikiell's offense would not be hung in the Louvre. You know, it wouldn't be. It's not the most beautiful product. They play defensively oriented, grind you down basketball, and there's nothing wrong with that. They've won a lot of games, and Pikiell, he could be the coach of Connecticut way, way down the road. But I do think that for Cam, Dan Hurley runs an offensive system that takes a lot of IQ, is very intricate, that is very attentive to detail. That's who Cam is on the offensive end of the floor. He embraced that. The way that their offense is run, it's like synchronized swimming. It's nonstop movement, off-ball curls, pin-down action. All of those things that we get in the weeds on, UConn does them to a T, and that's why for Spencer, I thought that Connecticut's been the best staff in America the last 2 years at getting their players in the best position to hit the best shots. For a player like Cam Spencer, that's a dream scenario.
Talking to John Fanta, FS1. We love your work. You do a lot of stuff across the Big East for men's basketball, but also women's basketball. We had the lovely Caroline Descharme on our show earlier. Talked to her a little bit about the Big East, and we say this all the time for women's basketball Big East. I dub it the Where is the Competition Tour for the UConn Huskies. Are we going to get some competition this season, John Fanta?
Well, I think you will from Creighton, because I think that Creighton – they welcome everybody back again between Morgan Molly and Lauren Jensen and their core of players. So Creighton, Jim Flannery has built a monster of a program in Omaha nationally. But UConn's not losing in the Big East, and they're not losing the Big East tournament. And frankly, I think they're going to win the national championship. I do. I think that the UConn women are about to reestablish themselves. I knock on wood and say, for heaven's sake, please stay healthy.
Yes.
I'll get one for you,
Joe.
Yeah.
But between... To me, what was really interesting about the end of last year, you saw Ice Brady get a role late as a result of Aaliyah Edwards going down and then Edwards coming back. But to me, that was a confidence booster for her. Paige Beckers, this is her time. This is her time. This is her moment. Caitlin Clark is gone. Women's basketball needs a face. I think for the women's basketball fan, I think the fact that there was a face in Clark this past year makes you as a fan of the sport. It created fans in all of us and followers in all of us.
Yeah.
But the sport now is at its best when it has its superstars. This is going to be Paige Becker's time. And you hope that AZ Fudd can stay healthy and put it all together. But I really like the way that the freshmen came on as the year went on last year. I think KK Arnold still has quite a bright future ahead of her and is going to continue to grow as a player. But I think all the pieces align, combined with the recruiting class that they bring in. And I just think that what you saw last year, at the end of last year, the fact that that team made the Final Four was one of Gino Auriemma's best all-time accomplishments. There are people around UConn who have been at UConn for 40 years who texted me the night that they beat USC and said this is his best coaching job of his career. I think they come off that, and I think that this year they go 2 steps further. They win in the Final Four, and I think they win it all. I think there's an open doorway in women's basketball, and UConn steps through it and reestablishes themselves at the top of the mountain.
What did you think of the Olympic teams, the men and the women?
Well, I think that the men's team, the men's basketball Olympics was perfect for the sport of men's basketball and showed just how much the gap has closed in a good way. And it creates a lot of intrigue heading into 2028 because there's going to be a lot of pressure on the Americans, and they're not going to be a heavy favorite.
Right.
This was the end of an era. Steph Curry, LeBron James, and Kevin Durant shut a door yesterday, and they won it with gold. And Steph Curry was on Saturday. Steph Curry that is unbelievable. For a guy who's had a perfect career, that's the perfect bookend to what you've done all throughout your career because he's not winning another championship. Unless he goes ring hunting, why would he? He doesn't need to.
No.
He can. His last game will be as a Warrior. I think we all know that. For me, that final, I thought the United States could have won the game by 10 to 15. They got sloppy a little bit, but the way Curry finished, that was must-see.
Oh my God,
TV.
he made one shot. He was falling back, threw it up, went
over
in.
2.
It was
over
unbelievable.
2 guys.
The women,
Over Wembanyama. By the
over
way.
Wembanyama.
Yeah, that
over
was
Wembanyama.
insane.
Now the women. Let's get to the women's team. I think it's pretty clear that team was not the most talented group of women's basketball players that our country has to offer.
100%.
I don't think that's a big. Now they had their moment. They won gold. I think you will see some changes to USA women's basketball within the next 4 years in terms of some of the leadership, because I do think some politics that played a role in how the team got selected ended up holding the team back a little bit. And the fact is, in 4 years, we're going to all be entering the Olympics as a country, hosting the Olympics. We're not going to be winning the gold medal game by a point. We're going to be out to win the gold medal game by 20, make a statement, dominance, all that. I actually do think, though, that it could be a good thing, and here's why. To me, it would have been anticlimactic, in my opinion, if Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese play in this Olympics, and they do win by 10 or 15, but they win in France. I predict in 4 years, Caitlin Clark will be the flag bearer with Angel Reese at the opening ceremony, and it will be, for women's basketball, it will be the Olympics of women's basketball. Think of the crowds. Think of the potential there. But, yeah, this year's team, it was a lesson. They're very fortunate to have won the gold, and they should always win gold. And I know that we say that in a cocky way, but The fact is there's not as close of a gap in women's basketball that there is in men's basketball.
You can see John all the time on FS1, and one reason we love watching your stuff is the style. Now, we have got some friends in the broadcasting biz. At Andy Serling, our friend from NYRA, incredible style. You remind us a little Craig Sager. You're not there yet, but a little Craig Sager, incredible
that's
style.
Extreme. That's really, really humbling.
That's extreme, but what is it all about for John Fanta's style? You got a powdered blue every once in a while. You go with certain ties. Is there a method to the madness, sir?
Well, there's two things that come to mind. Now, I've never told this story, but I really have not. When I was a freshman at Seton Hall, because I went to Seton Hall. I know UConn fans boo somewhere.
Yeah, boo.
Craig Sager came up to me, and he was about a year or two away from passing, unfortunately. God rest his soul. And we had a conversation, and he did say to me in that conversation, you can do one thing in this, you can be yourself. And Craig was always himself. So that is one of the more humbling compliments I've ever received, because I think the world of Craig Sager. That's a guy who's a standard in our business. I think there's a couple of things that come to mind. For me, I was raised in Northeast Ohio, so I'm a Clevelander. So I'm Browns, Guardians, Cavs. Guardians got 2 in Minnesota to close out the series, keep that division lead. But when you grow up in Cleveland, you eat, breathe, sleep, die those sports. And the voices that are in that town, Jim Donovan does the Browns games, Tom Hamilton does the Indians, now the Guardians games, and Joe Tate, wham, with the right hand, Richfield Coliseum, did the Cavalier games. You learn what passion is like. And, I learned from my parents, my mom, Molly, my dad, Jerry, that you could do two things in life. You can control how hard you work. You could bust your tail and work. When somebody asks you to do an assignment or do something or come on a show or be there, you figure out a way to make it work. And you can control how you are around people. And I try to do those two things to the maximum degree every day, because this beats working in a cubicle. What I get to do to come on the air and sit next to the likes of Donny Marshall, Jim Spanarkel, Bill Raftery, Tariq Turner, Sarah Kustok, it beats working in any cubicle or doing the things in the medical field that those doctors and nurses have to do every single day, God bless them, or being a police officer or a firefighter. I get to do this. I get to cover the back-to-back national champions. I never take that for granted. And my philosophy is this. When I call a game, there's a UConn fan out there that's flipping the game on, whether it's UConn Wagner or UConn Creighton. And for them, those 2 hours are the most important 2 hours, next 2 hours of their life. It better be for me, sitting courtside.
That's well said. Very well said. Have you been inside yet?
I have been inside. Could I tell you a Donny Marshall story?
Yeah,
Please.
Go ahead. We just had him on. I wish you would have told us this a half hour ago.
So, I know. I should have bombarded the interview. That would have been. So, Donny Marshall, we are the odd couple working games, okay? Donny is a vegan, and I am not.
Yeah.
So the amount of times, I can't tell you. The one time, I'll never forget this. Donny and I are doing a game, and it's a blowout, and there's about 4 minutes to go in the game. And I look over to Donny, and Donny's on Instacart going through the lettuce, and I'm on DoorDash looking at what the heck's open in Mansfield and stores, and I go, there's an Applebee's, ding. And Donny just looks at me, and I look at him, and we're like, God, we couldn't be more opposite in this. But that's how we make it work in the booth, because
Fantastic.
Opposites attract.
That's so true. All right, what was your day like today out here at Donny Marshall Celebrity Golf Tournament? Raise money for the Talent Fund, benefits Ryan Martin Foundation. What was it like for you? You were on the South Course, I hear.
Yes, I was on the South Course. This is the type of course that you could hit a shot and feel really good about, and this course just spits it right back out at you.
50 of them for us.
Yeah, exactly.
I thought I played all right, but man, this one, he ate me alive. There were a couple drives as the day went on where I'm like, wow, I can't even be hard on myself here today. Tough course, but a great event for a terrific cause. And, one of the things that I've learned young in this industry is that a guy like Donny is so good to people.
Yes, he is.
Donny Marshall, my wedding was last September 1st, on the Friday of Labor Day weekend. And Donny's up here in Connecticut. Now, we all know what a holiday weekend on a Friday is like traffic-wise. And he took, with his kids had every game in the world going on. and he didn't make it to the reception because his family had a bunch of stuff. He drove from Connecticut down to my wedding, came for the hour, and went back home. That's the kind of person Donny Marshall is. Donny Marshall comes into the arena, says hello to every single security person and every single official and every single person that comes up to him. That is the kind of person that he is. That's why we're all here for a terrific cause, but it's very fitting that this is the Donny Marshall Charity Classic because that's who Donny is, and that's who he is to this community. So, I just think that this is my first time at this event. And what I could see at this event was just an awesome, awesome cause, a powerful cause. And I wish the best of luck to those competing in the Paralympics. I can't wait to watch these athletes compete.
John, thank you for a few minutes today, man. We appreciate your time.
Thank you, guys. Anytime. Don't have a bone to pick with me next time. Hopefully not. We'll see. I'm sure you will. We'll have something.
You got to have a bone to pick with somebody. All right, Ryan Martin will join us at the top of the 5 o'clock hour. Stay tuned. We'll be right back on the Rob Dibble Show with Ben Darnell on your afternoon drive on Fox Sports Radio.